From the 11 Alive studios, this is The Georgia Vote with Faith Jesse and Zach Merchant.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, this is now the second longest government shutdown in history. And if it's not resolved by Wednesday, it'll be the longest ever.
Now, we know that the United States Senate, it is scheduled to be back in session tomorrow. Whether that leads to a breakthrough between Democrats and Republicans, that is uncertain. The big divide has been and remains over health care policy. Democrats say any deal to fund the government must include an extension of Affordable Care Act subsidies that are currently set to expire at the end of the year, which could cause premiums to rise. Republicans argue any health care debate should only happen if Democrats first support a GOP-backed short-term funding bill to reopen the government at roughly its current levels. This week, we asked Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock and Georgia GOP Chair Josh McCoon how to resolve this gridlock.
Is there anything you are willing to compromise on to reach a deal to reopen the government?
Oh, look, let's have a conversation. The problem is they won't even talk about it.
Is there anything that Republicans should compromise on to get a deal done?
Well, I think the point that needs to be made is that the people who are uncompromising in this conversation are the Democrats.
Senate Majority Leader, Republican John Thune, told CNBC that a lot more conversations are happening between rank and file members. He suggested that Tuesday's elections might provide a catalyst to end the stalemate. There are governor's races in New Jersey and Virginia, as well as other races of national interest in California and in New York City.
Tuesday is also Election Day here in Georgia. In South Fulton, there are 9 candidates for mayor, including incumbent Mayor Khalid Kamau, better known as Mayor Kobe. Well, he touts major wins, including the acquisition of more than 400 acres for infrastructure projects like a new 911 center. The mayor announced in April that he would not run for re-election, referencing low pay of this position and financial hardship, among others. But he reversed course in August. Critics say his tenure is marred by questionable spending and clashes with the city council. Well, this week, I asked him about the concerns from critics and why he decided to get back in this race. What changed for you, and why are you deciding to run for re-election?
Well, I want to be clear. None of those were the reasons that I wasn't running. I do think it's important to put on record our city is the same size as Atlanta. And where the mayor of Atlanta makes $212,000 a year, I make about $44,000 a year. So it is difficult to live on. I talked about those things in my announcement about not running, to talk about how much I had sacrificed to do the job. And it's for me, it's not a litany of complaints. It's an evidence of my love. Like, I would not work for $44,000 or sell my mother's house or be on food stamps for anywhere other than my hometown. This is my hometown. I love this city.
How will you work together with city council?
And I am unapologetically blunt about certain things. We won't work well together. And so what I'm telling the residents, we have staggered terms. One of the things that I'll be pushing for, if reelected, is for us all to be elected at one time, so that you can have, everybody should have the opportunity that citizens in districts 2, 4, and 6 will have this year, and 3 will have next year. So there are 4 council seats in the next 6 months that are up for election. And what I'm telling residents is that you need to pick a mayor and council that are politically aligned.
A city-issued audit, it found that over a 25-month period, you charged nearly $70,000 in what auditors characterized as questionable expenses, including streaming subscriptions, car wash services, and took 20 international trips to destinations like Canada, South America,
so let me stop you there.
Africa.
It wasn't 20 international trips. It was about 5 or 6 international trips. They are counting each leg of a trip. The auditing firm found across 76 purchasing cards, because they did not just my card, they did 76 purchasing cards. 30% of the expenses came from council, over $700,000 worth of expenses that were as questionable to the auditors as my expenses. But people that are running for mayor on that council They are the ones that made the motion that called for this audit. Their supporters went to the news and said, oh, these things are questionable. We need to investigate this mayor. They have consistently refused to do a forensic audit of themselves.
But if you are reelected, is it an issue of budget? Should these travel be pulled back? Should they be planned on a calendar so that everybody as a council and the mayor is going and we're not doing separate trips? What are your thoughts on that?
I think the best way to save money is to just have the mayor go, right? If the mayor is the spokesperson of the city, I don't know why other people are traveling internationally. If the question is how much we're spending on international travel, then maybe we just have one ambassador for the city. Who's the mayor?
Of course, this was just a small part of our 20-minute interview. That full interview streaming right now on 11alive.com and 11alive Plus. Now, if there is no outright winner on Tuesday, the top two finishers, they will advance to a runoff.
Also on Tuesday, Georgia voters will decide two important races for seats on the Public Service Commission. It is a board that regulates utilities, including power companies in Georgia. Peter Hubbard, a Democrat, is seeking to unseat GOP incumbent Fitz Johnson in District 3, which covers parts of metro Atlanta. With the data center industry in Georgia on the rise, we asked him about his background and how he will protect power customers' wallets.
Can you promise that if you are elected to the Public Service Commission, data centers will not cause people's power bills to rise?
What I can promise is that I will scrutinize what they're paying and look at the cost causation mechanisms and whether or not those costs are being allocated to those who are causing them, or if they're being shifted onto the backs of folks like you and me who pay a residential power bill. That's what I can promise, is that fair treatment and judgment of who is causing the costs.
What experience do you have in the energy regulatory area that makes you think you're qualified for the PSC?
Well, when I worked at Siemens Energy Business Advisory, my role was to run the models, the electricity models, the very same model that Georgia Power Company uses to come up with its long-term integrated resource plan. I have all the experience that's needed for this Public Service Commission, and I would just remind your viewers that none of the 5 commissioners we have now have really any energy industry experience whatsoever, so I would be the first on that commission.
Commissioner Fitz Johnson is the Republican incumbent in this race. We asked him the same questions we asked his challenger.
Are you prepared right now to tell Georgians that data centers will not cause their rates to increase?
100%.
No increase
100%.
because of data
There's not
centers?
going to be any increase because of data centers or large loads, 100 megawatts and above, because you got to think about your large manufacturers that come to this state as well. No, sir, they will not see, and like I said, that's what I hear the most out there. They don't want to pay for it, and I don't blame them. I'm a Georgia Power customer, and I'm a small business owner, and I don't want to foot the bill for those that come into the state.
Before you joined the PSC, did you have any professional background in energy regulation?
Directly into energy regulation, you call 21 years in the Army, I call yes.
What was your occupation in the Army?
I was a medical service corps officer. Do we need energy, and do I have to make sure the energy stays on? And when you're running a company, I had a defense contracting firm, 1,700 employees, 36 states, 7 foreign countries. Do you think I had my eye on the energy? You better believe I do.
Now, these are just parts of our conversations. You can see our full extended interviews with both candidates, including whether they would support future rate hikes, streaming right now on 11 Alive Plus.
All right, time now for our political roundtable. Today we have Democratic strategist Fred Hicks, the founder and president of the Hicks Evaluation Group, which has worked with hundreds of political campaigns for nearly 20 years. Republican strategist Joshua Edmonds, vice president of the Stonebridge Group. He was the executive director for the Georgia Life Alliance from 2018 to 2022, where he authored the first draft of Georgia's heartbeat bill. And in her debut appearance on the Georgia Vote, Riley Bunch from the AJC. She covers local government, including Atlanta City Hall. Before that, she was a policy reporter for GPB, and now she's a panelist on TGV. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here. I want to start off, we have elections coming up. That is the big talk this week. Fred, I want to bring you in here with my interview with Mayor Khalid Kamau. Elected in 2021, he won in a runoff, just over 59% of the vote against incumbent Bill Edwards. Do you see this race going to another runoff? And keep in mind, Bill Edwards, he's one of those competitors.
Absolutely. So I do think this will go into a runoff. The 21 election was a generational election, right? So Bill Edwards being one of the older mayors in Fulton County, Khalid representing a new generation in Wade. But I think that South Fulton voters have something to think about now. So it'll definitely be a runoff. I don't know who will be in it, but I think there'll definitely be a runoff.
And Riley, you cover municipal races all across Metro Atlanta, all across Georgia. What are voters telling you are the issues that are top of mind for them when they're getting ready to cast this ballot?
Well, obviously, housing, cost of living is top of mind for voters when they cast their ballots at the poll, and public safety still, even though Metro Atlanta has seen success in its public safety numbers, reducing crime rates. That's still something that people want to feel safe walking down the streets every day. So, and also infrastructure too, I would say, is top of mind for voters, and transit. We have a lot of huge topics, a lot of engaged voters, and they're thinking about a lot this year.
Joshua, let's bring you in on here. Looking at just all of the races on Tuesday, does anything stand out to you specifically? What are you watching for?
Yeah, I mean, you look at these PSC races, I mean, all eyes are on the municipal races because that's driving primarily our turnout here in Georgia for Tuesday. So these races shouldn't have been on the ballot this year. They should have been on the ballot in 22 and 24 respectively. And here we are with the PSC at the top of the ticket for the first time ever. And it's a very interesting scenario. All eyes are on Atlanta and South Fulton to see how that impacts these races.
You talk about these races you say shouldn't have been on the ballot this year. They were hung up in legal proceedings that delayed these elections. Obviously, we're here now. Talk about turnout. Fred, why are these municipal races such important drivers of what happens at the top of the ticket?
Well, I think to what Josh was alluding there, the municipal elections tend to be dominated by Democrats because in cities like South Fulton or Atlanta, or even a lot of our North Fulton cities that have trended blue lately, those are the voters that are coming out to vote. But voters in rural Georgia may or may not have an election, and they're a much smaller portion of the electorate. So because people come out to vote in their local elections, they will also have the chance to vote on these two seats, in which really could, and some people say should, result in a victory for Democrats, maybe two on Tuesday.
And Riley, in your reporting, are you getting the sense that there is an excitement to get out there and vote?
You know, I would say that it's up for a question in Atlanta because we have a mayoral race that isn't highly competitive. We have city council races, a president race, but I think it's a lot to do with getting out to vote at the end of this election. There's a lot of eyeballs on the federal government right now and what's going on in Washington, D.C. So voters and candidates are going to have to kind of push their bases to the polls this time around.
Let's stay on this topic here. Joshua, I want to ask you, how does the national political environment shape the conversation in these municipal and kind of lower ballot races?
I mean, you're talking about elections where there's probably in many cases not a ton of name ID for who these candidates are. People don't largely engage in these local races unless it's highly contested. So you're looking at these candidates through the lens of Republican and Democrat, and you're seeing this larger national debate about the government shutdown and compromise and negotiation, and people are frustrated about what's happening right now. So I think if you filter through the lens of the fact that Democrats won't negotiate and reopen the government, they're going to be more likely to turn out and say, I'm going to go vote Republican regardless what the race is.
We've got about 10 seconds. Fred, I want to give you a chance to respond on that shutdown comment.
If you're okay with giving children health care after the government reopens, why not give it to them before so the government can reopen? Don't let children starve and don't let children go without health care. Simple.
I think that was about 10 seconds, and you can see the shape of the divide just between these two seats here. Guys, we'll have much more coming up in a moment. Stay with us. We'll have more from the panel, and you will also hear from the candidates running for the District 2 seat on the Public Service Commission. That is all coming up next.
Welcome back. So we continue our coverage of the Public Service Commission election with an incumbent defending his seat in District 2.
Now, this district, it covers parts of East Georgia, including Augusta and Savannah, but all Georgia voters participate in this election. We start our conversation with Commissioner Tim Echols, a Republican and the incumbent.
As the AP reported, I think there have been 6 rate hikes in recent years here. People are going to say that their power bills have gone up, and they're going to see that you've been in office almost 15 years. They may blame you for a more expensive power bill. What would you say to those voters?
Look, it's not 6 rate hikes. I mean, we've had two of the increases come from nuclear plants going into rates, finishing. By law, we had to put those into rates. My opponents count that as a rate increase. My opponents count the Ukrainian conflict that's caused natural gas to spike in America because France and Portugal and the Netherlands aren't buying Russian gas. They're buying U.S. gas, and it's impacted our market. We really had one increase coming out of 2022, out of the pandemic, when everything was high, toilet paper, eggs, everything. We even waited until the pandemic was over before having that impact. And we did it in a 3-step increase. My opponents count that as 3 rate increases. Of course they do. They're trying to take me out of office. So they're going to do anything they can to distort my record, to not talk about reliability and the importance of the way that we do things in Georgia. I mean, we are the #1 state to do business in America. We're 7th in solar. We have the largest clean energy plant in America. Why would you want to change commissioners?
Now, of course, we also interviewed Democratic challenger Alicia Johnson and asked what she would do differently to keep power prices down.
If you're elected, what will you do to make power more affordable in Georgia?
One, I'd like to see an expansion of energy efficiency and weatherization programs across the state. As I've shared many times, a lot of our Georgia families, about 47% of Georgia families are asset limited, income constrained, working families. They are often rent burdened and energy burdened. So they're likely living in homes that aren't weatherized. They're not energy efficient. So I'd like to see an expansion of programs that helps assist those families, as well as our seniors, who are one of our growing population groups on fixed incomes. I think that we can look at ways to leverage renewables to stabilize pricing and our reliance on volatile fossil fuel markets that spike bills. You know, every time gas prices rise, our power bills rise.
Those are only parts of our conversations. You can see our full extended interviews with both candidates, including their answers on how they would propose managing the booming data center industry in Georgia. That is all streaming right now on 11 Alive Plus. Well, we are back now with the panel, and we have talked about the election on Tuesday, so let's look ahead to 2026 now, which is not all that far off. The AJC has a new poll of 1,000 likely Republican primary voters asking them who they prefer in the race to challenge Democratic U.S. Senator Jon Ossoff. Here are the results. Representative Mike Collins, 30%. Representative Buddy Carter, 20%. Derek Dooley, former college football coach, he's at 12%. And here's a figure I know all of these campaigns are going to be paying a lot of attention to. 38% of people said they did not know. Margin of error, we should always point that out as well. It's about 3%. Riley, you're at the AJC. This is your paper's poll. What do you make of this when you see this?
You know, I think that it's important to remember we have a lot of time. There's a lot of time left. There's a lot of undecided voters, right? And these are voters that range from the spectrum. They could be Republican voters, they could be Democratic voters, and the Republicans are going to need a candidate that can make inroads with both of those voters. You know, Jon Ossoff is popular with moderates. They need a candidate that can win over the Trump-supporting voters and some more of those moderate voters.
And I mean, time is of the essence, right? When these numbers come out, the text messages go, and I thought that one from the Dooley camp was interesting. They're represented. Both Buddy and Mike have over double the name ID Derek has. Early frontrunners in the fall of the off year don't tend to win in our state. Do you all agree with that?
I think these polls are going to be looked at heavily by political donors. They're going to be looked at by the Trump administration. Who's viable? Who's growing? Who's not? Derek Dooley, even in third place in this poll, continues to grow. Mike Collins continues to establish a lead. Not a lot of growth from Buddy Carter. That's the big question mark in this poll is, can Buddy Carter turn around to donors in the White House and say, I'm a contender in this race?
Fred, I know you're a Democratic strategist, but we're going to ask you to weigh in on this race too. What, if anything, do these candidates need to do to emerge? Is there a clear frontrunner yet at this point? Is the field even set at this point?
Well, I think the field is pretty close to being set, particularly given the amount of money that's being spent already in this race. But what they need to do to separate is really a great question. I think to, again, piggyback on something that Josh was just saying there, that these polls are important because we have to remember that Donald Trump has not weighed in on this race yet. So he's weighed in on the governor's race, but he's not weighed in on this race. And so if one candidate seems to get closer to the edge of winning, then I think that person might have a better chance of getting that support, which would push him over. But in terms of, and that's one big thing that I think they're all vying for right now, is Trump support.
Fred, we always hate to cut you off. I think that's a good time to do it, though. We will always continue this conversation. The panel right now is wrapping up the Georgia vote. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back. Governor Brian Kemp's focus this week, he says, is on strengthening Georgia's global business ties.
That's right. The governor and the first lady visited South Korea and Japan. Now, according to the governor's X account, they met with leaders from Toyo Tire, Yakult, Yamaha, and Aflac, among others. All of those companies have ties to Georgia in some form. The governor also addressing the September immigration raid at a Hyundai plant in South Georgia. In an interview with the AJC, Governor Kemp said, quote, "We can't allow one incident to ruin 40 years of mutual friendship and trust."
Stay with us. The special voice of the voter is next as we look ahead to Election Day.
Welcome back, and we say it every week. You can't have the Georgia vote without Georgia voters, and this week we have a whole lot of them.
That is because we have traveled the state all year long, hearing from countless Georgians about what matters most to them when they think about politics. With Election Day around the corner, here is what they say is on their minds as they cast their ballots.
What's the number one issue you hope the candidates who are running and the elected officials who are in office pay attention to?
We really want them to embrace small-scale agriculture. And kind of look what you can do with different infrastructure.
I think for me, it would probably be healthcare.
Put more money into the youth, community spaces, sports, mentorship programs.
Food security is the biggest thing in my opinion, and increasing the local availability of our food.
We're a Christian nation, and that's what we were founded on, and that's what we should stand by.
On a national level, I would love to see the two parties work together and not always fight each other. It always seems that they're bickering for position and power versus real change and affecting the community. And I just wish we would see some change in that area. You know, stop fighting each other and let's start really working together to see real change in America. We have the greatest country in the world.
What would you say you're most concerned about when it comes to access and affordability?
When you look at things like hospitals and cancer and stuff like that, we have amazing hospitals in Atlanta, you know, between Emory, Grady, Piedmont, Northside, but like the amount of people that need to get there is so hard.
What are you most optimistic about and hopeful for, especially when it comes to our politics or nature or both?
I know politicians and people that have in high positions, I know they take nice trips to places that look like this. Without this, we can't survive. Us, animals, without nature, we can't survive. I feel that I just got to get the right person in Fulton County and the right person in South Fulton that can say, yes, it's very important.
You know, you look back at all that and see all the people we've met.
Yeah.
So grateful for all of them for sharing their perspective with us.
And we still have so many stories yet to be told. Thank you so much for being with us today. We hope to see you back here next Sunday at 11 for another edition of the Georgia Vote.